A very good morning once again to all of you. We've just looked at lecture number 1 of unit 3, and we just looked at what are the domestic uses of water. Very easy. We have been using domestic water from the time we were born, and till now we have been using water in different domestic uses. Today, let us again look at some of the other uses of water. So let us focus on two main uses of water from here on. Really focusing on urban water use, water that's being used in the urban area, and second type of use is the industrial water, that the water that's being used for industrial purposes. So let us now look at those, and we will be following that with the impact of water supply system. So when supplying for domestic purposes, when supplying for urban purposes and industrial purposes, we need to have some kind of system. For example, if you're using water sources from lakes, ponds, or rivers and streams, you are not directly going to get those water from those sources to at your home, but instead you are going to basically connect those with the reservoir or the tank, then connect that with again the piping system. Then the piping system gets to the near of the houses, and we build some kind of like tank near the house, and those tanks are usually placed towards the top of the building or towards the top of the roof of any house. And to take that water to top of the building, we somehow need water pump. So basically all those things which has supply system, supply hydraulics involved, they must be having some kind of impacts to the environment, to us, to our resources. So we're just going to discuss on that impact after we have discussed urban water and industrial water. So urban water is that water that goes to urban area for urban use, but industrial water is the amount of water that's being used for industrial purposes, like production of paper in pulp and paper industries. Like simplest example can be manufacture of steel, where you really need huge amount of water. And another example can be a refinery, where to refine crude oil, you really need a huge amount of water. So those are some kind of industrial uses that we have. And the urban use are those water that directly goes to the town, the cities, for those people to be used. So for example, if this is the total water supply per year, of that total, 455 cubic kilometer per year is being taken for urban water supply, and around 739 cubic kilometer per year is being taken as industrial water supply. And again, looking to urban water supply, those taken to cities and town, we see that from that 100%, or from that 455 cubic kilometer per year, 60 to 90% is being actually taken up for the municipal water use. That means it's actually taken for the homes, the offices, the buildings, all sorts of urban facilities that are in the urban area. That's taken in that those areas. So these are basically 60 to 90% of municipal water use. But again, rest 10 to 40% are sadly being lost in the form of leaky pipes. So it's very important to note that though leaking pipe, you may just see few amount of water being lost, but in a year it's quite a huge. If you just do not fix the leaking pipes, it will just waste lots of water. So around 10 to 40% of the water is being lost. So From that, 60 to 90% that's being taken up for municipal water use. Like I said, different buildings and homes. 12% is being evaporated or evapotranspired from plants or directly from the water reservoirs. And 60 minus 12, 48, or 90 minus 12, 78, 40 to 78% actually goes to the water piping system. And from that, most of the water is used up by the people, and which gets to sewage discharge. And some of the water, around like 1.7% of 48 to 78%, is actually being reused. So we just recycle or we reuse those water, and you just have to note that the amount of reuse of this water is again very less. And again, we have got stormwater drainage, where it's very important for us to harvest rainwater system in the urban area. If the actual water supply is not enough for us, so that's on urban again. If you look to industrial, so 455 is for urban and 739 is for industrial. But if you compare industrial water use to urban, we see that it's around 162% more than urban. So a huge amount of water is being taken for industrial purpose. So we'll be now looking at firstly at urban water use. What is urban water use, and what are the different methods where we can reduce the urban water loss, and how we can conserve urban water use. And that's being followed up by industrial water use, industrial water use, and how we can manage industrial water use. So let us go now with urban water use. So urban water use is any water that's used in cities, town, in form of like treatment plants for different purposes. Mainly you need to know the water that's being used for the urban purposes, the water that's in urban area. We will define urban water shortly after some time. But before going on with the definition of urban water use, let us revisit the fact and figures of urban water use and compare with the rural water use. More than half of the population around the world is like living in the urban area. So if it is around, we have 7 to 8 billion population around the globe, and about more than 3.5 billion they live in urban. So from there itself, we can imagine that the amount of water that's being used for urban will be slightly more than the rural area. And again, that's being said, even if it is more, even if it's equal, the kind of technology, the kind of people, the kind of sedentary life people in urban area lives, the kind of product that they consume, the kind of work that they do compared to rural areas, they require a huge amount of water as compared to a rural area. So every second that we count, 2 people are actually migrating to urban area, and the total urban water use is about 96% higher. And again, if you just look at the total rural water use, it's just 81. So there's a difference of around 15% of water use between urban and rural. And if you look at the water that's being available for the sanitation, around 79% of urban areas are having access to good water that's for sanitation purpose, but rural areas are just having around like 47% around the globe. We can have some facts and figures looking at the slums. The world has around 8 to 7.6 million slums, but it was noted around the time between 2000 to 2010 that around 227 million people actually migrated from the slum to the actual better life, or to good urban areas. And again, that is adding huge number of people to urban population, making the urban population to have high water use. Again, if you just look at this graph quickly, the orange is for the piped, the blue is for improved sources, and the green is for unimproved sources. So in urban areas, even if it is the poorest of the nations, it has got around like 5%, and 59% are improved. But however, around 36 unimproved sources. But in general, the kind of unimproved source that you see in terms of urban area, and the kind of unimproved sources that we see in terms of rural area, is drastically different. So the green ones are very less in terms of urban areas, even if the countries are very poor. The richest, they have got improved sources, like unimproved sources only around 6%. So we can definitely make it out from here that urban water is more in water use is more in urban areas as compared to rural areas. And again, all the sources are improved in urban areas compared to the rural areas. So generally, increase in population in urban areas is causing increase in urban water use. So the definition of urban water is water that occurs in the urban environment and includes consideration of natural sources, water and groundwater, both natural surface water and groundwater, and again water provided for potable use, again sewage water and wastewater, storm water, flood services, recycling of water. That's in urban areas mostly we will be seeing that water is being recycled to be used for other purposes. Again, those recycled water can also be considered as urban water. And we have got a word called third pipe. It's an extra word in urban water. A third pipe water is a treated water. So generally sewage water is being treated, and this treated water, people may or may not drink it because it may or may not again meet the standard of drinking water. But however, this can be used for other non-drinking purposes, like for bathroom purposes, for washing purposes, for irrigating the lawn purposes. So those kind of purposes can be served by the third water. So again, third water can be also considered as the urban water. So basically, any water that's living in urban area, or that's in urban area, as well as in the natural area nearby the urban. So that's what urban water is all about. Generally, urban water is determined by the urban population. So if the urban population is high, the water use by the urban area is high. The geographic location, if the urban area is very developed and metropolitan area, then the kind of the amount of water use by the urban area will be again high. The geographic location is very important. For example, you can still consider Messina as an urban area. You can still consider Thimphu as an urban area, but the kind of like urbanization that has taken place in Messina and Thimphu is quite different. The water that's being used in Thimphu is way much higher than the water that's being used in these areas. So the kind of geographical location that urban area is, again determines the water use. Again, if the urban area is located in desert, and if the urban area is located in forest area, again water consumption is different. The desert urban area will consume less water because they know that water is not available, and they use less water. But if the urban area is located in the huge topographical areas like forest area where you have got good water supply, then that's where people use more water. So geographical location is all about accessing or having feasible water nearby or not, and percentage of water used in the community. So that's again the water that's being used for different kinds of activities again will determine the water use in the urban areas. The major drivers, the increase and decrease of the urban water use will be driven by, firstly, increased urbanization. The more people who are moving from rural areas to urban area will determine the increase in the urban water use. Population growth, definitely. Living standard, the more or like higher the living standard of the people, higher the water consumption is seen in the urban areas, because you really need lots of things, lots of products, and you have got lots of products to be used, lots of things to be eaten. You have got lots of works to be done, and with that, we have to use more water, so more urban water use. And the amount of urban water that is available in that locality where the urban area is, or like where urban area depends for its water source, it will be driven by climate change again. So level and efficiency of public supply services, the more efficient the public supply services. For example, in Thimphu, water is being governed by, or water is being managed and supplied by Thimphu Somde. So if Thimphu Somde is very efficient in controlling and supplying water, then it's obvious that the amount of water that's being given to those urban will be high and very efficient. Patterns and habits of water use by population. If the population is very conscious about using water, then definitely the water use is going to be low in that urban area, and vice versa. Again, lastly, the technological changes, meaning if you have new technological equipments with you now, some will require more water, but some will require less water. So less water requiring technologies adapted can lead you to have less water use. So for example, let's take an example of a water tap. Conventional or a traditional water tap is not very efficient in terms of water conservation. But if a new faucet, if a new shower head is being installed, then that's way much more efficient in managing and conserving water. So technological changes again can drive the amount of water that's being used by the urban area. And last, the socioeconomic instrument. So how rich, how poor the people are, how well educated the people are, can really change the amount of water that's being used in urban area. I just got one example to let you know exactly what urban water use is all about. This is an example of California, one of the states in United States. So these blue ones are basically the per capita urban water used by the people around, and the gray small dots that you can see over here, these things, and this huge chunk over here, a huge chunk is over here again. These are basically the density. So one dot is equal to 1,000 people. So can you just imagine these are around like millions of dots. So millions into 1,000 people. And this area, these black ones, these areas are basically hydrologic region. So basically they have a good water source. And these are basically per capita average consumption of the people. So we see that in north coast, the population density is less. It's very less dense. The gray black dots are very sparse. So it's only 210. However, in this area, in Colorado River and the south coast area, because the density is quite high, again the water consumption is quite high. So again in this area it's quite high. So wherever the urbanization is high, you definitely can see that the water consumption is quite high. But again, it's quite contradicting over here that per day, these are the data for per day water consumption in Los Angeles, though they have got lots of population, is quite low. It's just 190 gallons per day. So gallon is equal to around 1 gallon is equal to 4 liters or like 4 bottles of water. So it's only like 190 gallons per day, the average consumption or average water use. So it's less, maybe due to Los Angeles is very developed place, and maybe you have got lots of technological changes over there, which is making people to use less water, maybe because of that. But I don't know why it's less, but around this area it's again high. It's 810. Let's go to per year consumption. So the figure over here shows the per year consumption. Still, though per capita per day is less in Los Angeles area, still the south coast, the Los Angeles area, which had lots of population density, is actually giving a high water use. So this water use is expressed in 1,000 acre feet per year. That's TAFE, and GPCD is gallons per day, gallons per capita per day. So 1,000 acre feet per day, feet per year is more towards the south coast, very less towards the places like north side of this California, because it had got very sparse population over here. So because of that, the water use is very less. Again, just wanted to show that wherever the population is high, the water use is very high. So we just took an example of south coast where the population density was very high, and we saw that again the water consumption is, or the water use is very high. So wherever the population is less, or wherever the urbanization is less, the water use is again less. Water is used, urban water is basically used by people in at their homes. Like this is called residential indoor. Sometimes the people also use water to irrigate their garden, water to irrigate their lawn, water to wash their surroundings and all. So these are called as residential outdoor. We have got commercial and institutional, where we have got institutions and some commercial places. Again, they use for outside and landscaping. Another one is they use for indoor. And we have got industrial alone, different kinds of industries in urban areas, and we have got conveyance and losses, different kinds of losses that the water can take place in urban areas. In residential, if you just look at the legend of the graph, red is for estimated current use, the water that is currently being used, and blue is for efficient water use, meaning if we use water efficiently, what will happen? And the green is highly efficient water use. So what will happen if we use with very high efficient technologies? So the current is around 2,900 TAFC, 2,900. But if you are using a very efficient water using system, then we are actually lowering from 2,900 to 1,600 TAFE. And if we are again using a very high one, then we are actually lowering about 300 TAFE. So 1,600 to 300, 1,300. So that's again huge. Look at the red to blue to green areas, how it's jumping. So these are how using of modern technologies and water conservation measures and habits that we just saw yesterday on our lectures, will actually make all the difference. So um, uh, other conveniences losses like leakage and all, leakage, evaporation, other mechanical failure. If we have a very high efficient or efficient water use, we see that nothing is being seen to be lost. So it's very important that we have certain education system, certain conservation measures in place. So let us again skip this one. It's just the same thing. So education is very important because we just saw that if we do not use any kind of efficient water use systems or measures, we are still using very high amount of water. That's the rates were very high. We saw that blues were coming a little bit down because we are using quite efficient water use systems, but very high or highly effective efficient water use were actually making all the blues and reds to have very lower greens. So it's very important that we educate people on water conservation and water awareness. So the education of water really means to promote the importance of water. So how important water is, and why we need to conserve water. We need to again educate people or make people aware that we can have different ways to use water efficiently. What are different kinds of efficiency usage of water can be taught in water education. We can also provide some sort of resources, some sort of policies, some sort of measures that can really look at minimizing the water in urban areas. We can also look at what are the different water conservation techniques that we can apply. So from the steps like a very basic awareness system, like basic education system, like creating an awareness on the importance of water, to using efficiency of water, to going to policy and water conservation level, is all about water education. So one of the best water education that we see around the world is looking at one of the goals of 17 sustainable development goals. So sustainable development goals are being put forth by United Nations, UN, particularly UNDP. So these are being put forth by UNDP, and these are put forth to all the nations in order to use our resources sustainably, in order to respect each other, in order to respect the rights of living organisms, humans, and all. So one of the goals that we need to achieve by 2025 is the goal number 6. That's clean water and sanitation. So when we are educating the citizens, when we're educating the friends and colleagues, it's very important to let them know that one of the sustainable goals that we have is goal number 6, that's on clean water and sanitation. So if you want to do a project, if you want to do any research, again, this goal will help you to get through the research or the project. If we look at the 5-year plan of our country, if you look at the 5-year plan of our country, what we see is that this 5-year plan is being actually at the grassroots, backed by key result areas. So the 5-year plan, the 12th 5-year plan that has started in 2018 and will be ending in 2023, is mainly looking at the objective of decentralizing the power, decentralizing the resources to the people. So in this case, we have during the course of 5 years, we have 17 areas or result areas which will actually let us know that our 5-year plan has been achieved or has been successful or has failed. So these 17 key result areas will basically check whether our 5-year plans are being achieved, how are the progress of the 5-year plans. And one of the key result areas again These are key result area like starting with the macroeconomic stability. So towards the end of the 5-year plan, we need to look at whether the macroeconomic situation of the country is stable or not. We need to look at other key result areas like economic diversification, whether economic has been diversified or not, whether we have reduced poverty and inequality in the country, whether whether we have preserved the culture or not. And one of those key results area is again to looking at the sustainable water. So water is again one of the key result areas. So we just want to see that whether water is being used sustainably or not, whether water is distributed equally to all parts of the country or not. So these are also policies which will not only lead our country towards achieving the 5-year plan, but also can lead to educating ourselves to know that yes, this is an important plan where sustainable water is one of the premise to achieve the plan. So sustainable development goal of UN is dealing with the goal number 6 on water, that's clean water, and national key result area of 5-year plan of Bhutan, specifically the NKRA 17 is looking at the sustainable water. So just look at that one. So this is all about urban water use. What is urban water use? How we can manage urban water use? And the best way to manage urban water use is through education. And we saw that water education is all about making people realize the importance of water, realize the ways to have efficient water system, which we'll be talking a little bit after some time when we are talking about conservation measures at last. And we saw that one of the best education system, or one of the best visions and missions that were put forth by the people were two. One is sustainable development goal put forth by UN, and the other one is by our own country. That's a 5-year plan, which is being checked by 17 national key result areas. So thank you so much.